is a 600 million market cap mobile tools company in the Philippines. All of these are LPs in our fund as well, but they spend a lot of time just kind of helping us and have very specific areas of expertise and enable us with a 9-person direct team to cover the 600 million people across Southeast Asia. And their role is to kind of make sure we're seeing everything and at an early stage across all these countries. Go next. This is our advisory board. So we've been pretty fortunate to attract some good people. They're also investors in our fund. Obviously, all of them are 5+ times Midas list winners. Midas list, if you don't know, is the 100 most successful VCs. Each year they kind of rate people. There's a few more as part of this as well, but Tim Draper is a pretty legendary name and a big supporter of ours. He's actually one of our bigger LPs by dollars also. Dato Banato is a amazing entrepreneur. He started 3 companies, all of which exited for more than $1 billion, and then became a very successful VC and is a huge support to us. And Lee is the original head of Vertex, the VC arm of Temasek, one of the longest term investors in all of Southeast Asia, and also a great LP, and spends a lot of time with our portfolio companies and with us and with our LP relationships. So, again, so next. The biggest challenge we saw when we came to Southeast Asia, kind of in a big way, around 2008, 2009, is we didn't know if we were going to be able to, we knew we could find good companies, we didn't know how well we could exit them. At the time, there was very little M&A. The local large companies didn't really see any need to buy tech companies. They looked at technology as something you partner, not own. And fortunately, our premise of eventually the buyers will show up has been true. So we've exited, I think, 7 companies so far. Luxolo is one of our early investments out here, out of our incubator, partnership with the NRF, which LVMH bought for $50 million, which was their first big acquisition in Southeast Asia. Art of Click sold recently to Zerpis, Nix, who's actually one of our directors. Pi was acquired by Google, so on and so forth. I don't need to read all these. But we're starting to now see a lot of exits. From a fund level, we've actually returned a lot of money, which makes our LPs very happy. But we're seeing it accelerate pretty heavily. As you can kind of see from some of the names there, most of the acquirers that are active in the region, for kind of a surprise to us still, it's very rarely U.S. companies. We had the exit to Google and a couple others, but most of the interest we're seeing in Southeast Asia for acquisitions or large investments is not from the U.S., which is where most people get their capital. It's definitely Korea, Japan, and China have been the big ones. Recently, it's really been Japan. Obviously, they have their own kind of demographic challenges, and see Southeast Asia as one of the few kind of available markets to them that they can really grow with. And so we have a lot of our LPs are now based out of China as well, the investors in our fund. So next. So just kind of simply, we have 5 funds now. We're fairly happy with our track record. All 5 of our funds are in at least the top 10%, if not top 1% of all performing funds. The top 3 are our early U.S. funds. You can see the numbers. Obviously, the more recent the fund, the less the multiples. It does take a little while. It takes 7 to 10 years for a good startup to actually, break out and have a big value. So we usually see these numbers go up over time. The SEA Fund 1 was our first incubator in Singapore. We've been really fortunate there. I think we've had 5 of those companies exit. These numbers are actually quite dated. I need to update this slide. But we've actually already returned more than 2 times all the money to our investors. So say a little like 2.1x DPI. The overall holding value is probably like 6 or 7x, which is for a 2012, actually a late 2012 fund, are unusually good numbers. So we've been pretty fortunate in that fund. We're currently most of the way through raising a new dedicated Southeast Asia fund. We've closed now about $40 million of we're targeting is a $60 million fund just for Southeast Asia. We've already made about 60 investments. I've seen a bunch of upticks, but it's still early days in that fund. And I think that may be the last slide. That is the last slide. Okay. So I was going to, anyways, that's our fund in a nutshell. I wanted to just kind of open up to questions. My mandate to come speak was pretty broad, just kind of tell you how we see the world, what we've been doing out here. I had a friend of mine that was going to come join me also, kind of dual head this. I don't know if anyone, is Rich June out there somewhere? He disappeared on me. Anyway, so yes, that is us in a nutshell. We're super bullish on the region. We've been here a long time. We've seen a huge transformation, particularly in Indonesia, in the, call it 8 or 9 years we've been active out here. Just kind of had the benefit of watching this ecosystem go from what we would consider a very nascent ecosystem, a lot of entrepreneurs that have a lot of passion and very little knowledge of how to actually approach the market, approach VCs. Now we see very professional pitches. I'd say pretty well on par with what we see in the States. It's been super refreshing to kind of see how quickly this market has matured, and obviously there's a bunch of funds here, and there's a lot of energy here. We'd love to see the government do more to support companies as well, though in Singapore, no one could possibly do more than what Singapore does to support these companies. But it's but across the region we're seeing a lot of interest. It's just the tailwinds are very, very strong. So we're super bullish in the region. That's why we've raised this kind of new dedicated fund. And I guess I do have a question. Great. Yes. Yeah, so the question was about legal systems in Indonesia, and I would say that's pretty much the same question across Southeast Asia. So we do probably 90% of the time when we're investing in a company, and especially for the lead, we will have the company reincorporate itself in Singapore for legal and tax purposes. Singapore has no capital gains, and in a tech world, effectively has no taxes at all, which is always kind of a nice thing. But it's also the most fair, least corrupt legal system in the region. And so it's been very important for us to do that. We do have direct investments in Indonesia, and we feel like we're on a pretty decent footing here just because a lot of our LPs are in Indonesia. And a lot of them are billionaires, and we kind of feel like in order for someone to really kind of screw us out of a deal, they have to screw over some people that would scare us to screw over. So we figure they probably have a pretty good footing, and if it goes to a legal battle, they probably have most of the lawyers locked up in the country anyway, as our LPs. Yeah. And that's very true of Philippines. We've done a little bit in Vietnam, which is its own set of very unique challenges, being communist and currency controlled and all those kind of fun things. It's getting dramatically better. In Indonesia and in all these countries, they all recognize, you have to have a fair playing field in this kind of world, or investment dollars don't flow. And we've also had issues in the past, being, investors in, in the Philippines going back to 2005, where there were, questions at exit, if we were, good exits, were we actually going to get the money? And fortunately we always did, but every now and then we had a little scare. So it's a good question, and hopefully that will continue to be the case, more and more transparent legal systems. And yes, your question? Microphone? Yeah.
Thank you. Can I see the slide again, because I just probably missed it when you said you're having this exit strategy within 18 months, but I'm not really sure if it's the number. And if it does, then why you got that exit so fast? And do you ever have something that you keep for a long time, like your investment?
Yeah, so most of our companies, as a VC, we don't control the exit. We really wish we did sometimes, because we a lot of times see a company's achieved a good place and would be good for an exit, and the entrepreneur is not ready to exit. They want to go a lot further than us. Early exits, when you're doing early stage venture, are almost always good fortune. Either the company was a true rocket ship and it just took off, or the stars aligned, or there's some big strategic buyer out there that this company just perfectly aligned with what they're doing, and even though it's a very small company, they're willing to go through the brain damage and trying to get an acquisition done because it just, it's part of it fills a hole in the roadmap they really need to fill. So it's always a confluence of things. We wish we could do, we always invest looking at the potential exit opportunity, and if we can't figure out who a natural buyer is for something, that makes it really difficult. But usually these days you can figure out, okay, there's at least a decently scaled buyer set that isn't super cheap, that would want something. And everything we do is fairly deep tech. We don't do any kind of like tech-enabled services. We are more of a true VC fund. The companies we invest in, we hope have 10x or 100x potential. We're usually wrong. VC is one of those great places where you're wrong 90% of the time and you still get paid well. But yeah, so in the few exits we've had that were very quick, like the Google Pi sold to Google, the company was like 2 years old. Again, it's just wildly strategic that Google needed a kind of Slack-esque messaging system, and they needed it with certain people, and that Pi, even though they had like no revenue, it actually got a lot of customers that were very critical in the region, like big name customers, and it was a very fortuitous thing. If it's a Google buying your company, it was almost always a very happy outcome. They don't do anything small, so to speak. But it's hard to plan for that. Most companies that we invest in, we assume we're going to hold them, being seed stage investors, we assume we're going to hold them for 7 to 10 years. And we certainly tell our LPs that they should not expect to see a lot of dollars back for many years. In our incubator fund I showed up there, it's the fact that we actually returned twice the money in the first, call it like 3.5 years is very, very rare. As we said, and that took a lot of luck. We think we're pretty good, but it also took a tremendous amount of luck to get that quick of a return across the entire portfolio. So, any other questions? Yes. So the question was, what percentage of, I think I'll phrase the question properly, but what percentage of our companies are incorporated in Singapore versus Delaware Corps? And pretty much every company that's in Asia, I gotta think of the exceptions now, it's not a question I spend a lot of time thinking about. As long as they're in a first world country, I don't really care where they're incorporated for our purposes. But I think virtually all of our Southeast Asian companies do incorporate in Singapore or in Indonesia or Philippines, or probably 85–90% are Singapore. We have a couple of companies based out here that did incorporate in Delaware. It's probably not a great idea. A lot of our